Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. This is a session in which we're broadly going to be focusing on the Internet of Things. So without further delay, I'm going to start this question off with the first thing that I asked my panelists, and this is a conversation so everyone can jump in when they want to, which is how are we actually looking as a country when it comes to this whole concept of smart living, smart homes, as well as the Internet of Things? Because I'm wondering exactly who we are talking to, what kind of, income bracket we're really referring to, as well as scalability. So, Rishi, give me an example in terms of what you're seeing, how have things changed, what are the different pockets of usage, so to speak?
So, Fatima, the usage can be in any field, okay? And when the first time the IoT and the new technology started, it was for people who can afford. So I used to work for AT&T's digital home kind of opportunities, and when we were trying to search in India, the market was $1 million plus houses. They are the people who will be able to afford that kind of services. So they were not for the masses. But now, who are the consumers and who are the enterprises? And that's what I keep on trying to define. The largest enterprise of any country is the government, and their consumers are the citizens. And in a country like ours, whether we will be able to consider the remote health patient monitoring in a Gram Panchayat as a consumer getting services from the enterprise called the government is what we have to start debating and thinking. So I was in the Ministry of Healthcare and Child Welfare, and we were talking about how that child and mother centers in 155,000 villages can be converted into a clinic with a video conferencing facility, with all the devices there, whereas Asha Didi, who has been trained only to give a polio drops and few other things for the mother and child care, can be trained to take the blood pressure, ECG and other things, and get that consumer with the consumable products, and that's the IoT technology implementation.
Right.
So the scale is very large.
So, but that's potential for scaling, right,
Yeah,
that you're looking at.
that's
Ravi, we want to come in on this in terms of a snapshot when it comes to how you're looking at the Internet of Things in terms of how it's being implemented, both on a personal consumer level and I guess scalability as well.
Thanks, Padma. Actually, IoT is going to change lifestyle. Like there will be smart home, smart city, smart village, smart country, smart farmer, smart business, smart human. Nowadays, there are two things: network availability, network quality, and network security is very important factor going to play in smartness. All these devices will use sensors, and sensor need network. Sensor cannot roam from here to there to find out network.
Just bringing it to the side of my panel, I think one of the two most buzzing debates I've heard about when it comes to this whole topic is, number one is security, and I guess perhaps it's a matter of familiarity or educating the consumer. And the second part of it has been the viability when it comes to scaling, when it comes to costing, when it comes to basically implementation. What can you tell us about that? I mean, what are we doing in terms of realizing efficiencies when it comes to costs?
We actually deploy typically industrial IoT commercial grade network infrastructure for LoRaWAN. We've sat for about a year and a half now trying to understand the consumer market and how we can actually bring this secure technology to the homeowner. So with this technology, you actually take some of the requirements that an end user needs to understand, from their router to securing it down to preventing certain types of MAC addresses to associate. And if they don't do it well, they leave themselves vulnerable for attacks and hacks. With our technology, it's actually encrypted.
So that means it's not the consumer's problem.
It's not their problem.
That's wonderful. I love it when you can shift blame.
Yes. And the other thing we're looking at is pricing. Consumer IoT, there is this upper class area where it's a convenience technology where certain markets can actually go there and penetrate that and pay for it. But then there's also this other part of consumer where you really just need it. You need the technology to improve efficiencies across the board inside your home. And how do we get that to everyone? How do we get those solutions at a certain price point that even the normal person on the street can pay for? And Sinra is also looking at that as well, as how can we get these affordable price points to anyone and everyone? You see the new Samsung S9 that's come out. It's 60,000 rupees or something, and people will buy it. But is that needed for everyone? Do you need the Samsung S9? Can you actually make a phone call with a flip phone? And those mentalities are still IoT. It still gets the job done and makes it efficient, but it's now at a price point that people can pay for.
So before I go to Tarini and I go to Anil, I just want to ask you, are there any unique characteristics you've observed about the Indian market? Is there anything you can kind of describe to us?
So one thing we're seeing is safety is really important to everyone. I have two children myself, a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old. And when we first came to this country about December timeframe, when we shifted here, we didn't understand how safe it was. Being in the market, talking to school systems and understanding that this is not just an expat worry, it's actual residents here. We look to see how can we bring solutions that will actually allow parents to know where their children are. So if you take LoRaWAN technology, for example, it has about a 1 to 2 kilometer radius within a hub from your home. So this is an actual tracker at an affordable price that you can give to a child when they go in the street of their neighborhood and play basketball or soccer or on riding a skateboard, and you as a parent know where they are. Current technologies that's been in the IoT space like Wi-Fi, BLE, NFS, even Zigbee, they don't have those extended ranges. So now a person will actually pay for this because it's a thing that they need. They want to know where their children are. They want to be able to track them and know that they're safe.
Okay. Tarini, coming to you. We had a quick chat in terms of what you're observing. You had two interesting observations. One in terms of what's happening on the B2B level, and the other on the B2C.
So on the B2B level, so Map My India basically enables this entire IoT ecosystem with digital maps. So our big vision kind of for the future is to be able to make a digital map twin of the real world. So like outdoors, you have everything in 3D, 360 degree. We want to do that indoor as well. So map everything 3D, 360 degree with live inputs. So outdoor, you have a live input like traffic. Indoor, you could have a live input from any IoT sensor, right? So let's take a grocery store, for example. There are 4 ways that we could help change retail in India or make things more convenient for any person who's shopping. So once you have, we have an indoor mapping solution which is very simple, high precision. It's like a trolley, and you just run it through a building, and what you get back is a 360-degree 3D point cloud. So everyone sitting here would just be represented in dots with depth, etc. So in a grocery store, we could get like all the shelves, you could get all the walkways, you could get everything inside the store. On top of that, you could put, as soon as you have the walkways, you could put like paths for navigation, etc. So I'm walking into a grocery store, it's a Tuesday morning. My phone, Bluetooth, and the beacon in the store connect, and they know that I'm there, so they get my position. And then through location analytics, you sort of know that I go straight, take a right, I take a left, I reach the stall. On that shelf, usually there's Amul cheese slices stacked. So I picked up something like that. So you could tell that I'm probably in the store for cheese or eggs or milk. So in my app, I could get 3 options, and I could be like, do you want eggs? Do you want cheese? Do you want milk? I say yes, no.
Okay.
And then I get an indoor navigation path. So there are tons of ways that you could revolutionize.
So this is actually happening?
This is stuff that we're building right now.
Okay, okay, fine. Anil, before I come to you, I just want to go to Anirban because you have worked in the UK for many years and you've come back to India. Just a little bit in terms of what you've been doing as well as what your observations are about practical and I guess disruptive use. What do you think is really going to be the game changer when it comes to really using the Internet of Things?
So I guess the point that you actually mentioned, you use the term that how do you actually make it happen?
Yeah.
And that is really the key. So the few components where we see where in the consumer IoT space, things are really changing at a very rapid pace are broadly one can be classified as, let's say, connected lifestyle. Okay, so it can be about smart homes, it can be about connected cars, it can be even around retail. So what's happening here is, with the Internet of Things, with the technology that is available, we have newer sets of data. But equally, companies can now solve problems that were not being able to, they were not being able to solve before. So to give an example, one of the things that we see coming up quite a bit, let's take a retail store. The best way, or the most frequent way, popular way a retailer used to know about the consumer is when they are actually buying something. But by that time, the consumer has already made a decision. It's an after fact. But now with IoT data, video data, sensor data, when I am walking into a store, the company, the retail brick and mortar store, they can know me. And they can personalize what is in offer for me. IoT is also...
Very quickly, there was a very interesting article I was reading about this, which basically had, and this is a gentleman who's worked in the industry for a very long time. It was on one of those sort of edgy digital platforms.
Sure.
And he concluded his article saying, okay, you can do all of this stuff, but we've been functioning for years without this, right? I mean, I don't necessarily think my Kirana store, for example, needs to know which dal I am going to buy. I mean, how do you sort of sift through the data how much of this is really necessary? That's the question.
Yeah, so the question is, I mean, the definition of necessary, if you think about it, the opportunity is to, one, create a level of convenience that somebody was talking about, but equally induce positive behavior. And that is where it becomes necessary. A very classic example, you asked me about what I was doing, and most of the time when I was living in UK, I used to work for AXA. So let me give you an example of positive behavior. So we know about insurance pricing for automobile drivers, car drivers. Now, based on telematics data, what many insurers are doing right now are not just pricing the product, but some companies are giving an option to the drivers to saying that, look, here is your driving pattern, which was not right. If you take ABCD lessons, your premium will not actually go up. And that is also something that you're giving back to the consumer, but you are actually inducing a positive behavior. And that is where the necessity of it also comes into play. So this is where I will quote a favorite movie of mine, Jurassic Park, where Jeff Goldblum says, yes. So Jeff Goldblum says, just because we could doesn't mean we should, right? So let's think about this. So there is tons of data that are getting generated, tons of applications. What is useful? What is relevant?
And I'm going to bring Anil on at this side of this whole conversation. Anil, we've so far talked about the necessity of things, I guess the challenges that do exist. I mean, we do know that there are. What is your experience so far in terms of how would you sort of say we have a unique opportunity when it comes to this country?
So as you rightly mentioned, Fatima, it is what drives this is the necessity. So one facet of it is security. You know, if you have people in the house who are working and they really don't know what's happening in terms of in their house, in their car, and they are worried about security, that's the driver. So they would go into it and examine and maybe even incur an expenditure to get a technology-enabled device so that they get comfort with regard to security. But that's just one of the drivers. The other driver is the convenience. Again, the same family which is working class, they would perhaps want to come home and they will all be tired, so they will want to look at how can technology help them to do all the home errands. So look at a wireless kitchen, for example. Look at cleaning the house, cleaning clothes, I mean, a washing machine. All those appliances can be driven by technology and they can be actually driven by robots. Now, I know you will wonder as to these are all sort of high-tech things and very expensive.
No, in a country where labor is still relatively cheap.
Precisely. So I wouldn't say that this is what is coming in, but I think the level of the necessity is important. So if you're really worried about the security about your children, you will not really worry much about the cost to get that technology into place and put, say, cameras in the house, etc., to track children, etc., and sort of just do that, take that step. But if it comes to convenience, I think that's where you will take a call as to whether should I incur that expenditure or not. And as you rightly mentioned, if you have labor which is sort of coming at a much cheaper price, then I may not really go in for high-tech products. There's absolutely no doubt on that.
I just want to ask my panelists, I understand that some of the biggest challenges that these IoT enablers are having is the actual lack of end-to-end encryption, for example, that is a challenge. Also, seamless interoperability, right? And of course, there is the unreliable network connectivity issue that we have, which seems to be quite a problem, whether it's phone calls, forget Wi-Fi and data and everything else. Realistically speaking, what would you really like to see on the ground in terms of enabling more cohesion when it comes to these stakeholders?
So let me take this first.
Yeah.
Because, we are implementing IoT solutions in India. The way, we had to buy the cheap devices for the cost of the market segment from China or Taiwan. But since last 6 months or so, we have been able to buy at a price lesser than what I could get from China and Taiwan in India. Okay. Which has been a very significant change, and maybe, if somebody wants to say it as a Make in India success, it is happening as a Make in India success.
Okay.
So how to achieve that price points which India can buy at a consumer, if you're going to for a consumable market. So first, definitely I agree that, use case has to be, for people to buy. And how to create that use case and who will buy. Okay. So we just launched a motorbike solution, a connected bike solution, which will be able to give you theft reduction and the accident reduction.
Okay.
If you see, many times a person is lying on the road and nobody knows and nobody is taking care. So if you say that if a person is going to drive at a faster speed, the father will get the SMS that your son is driving at a faster speed. And if the bike fails, the family will get an SMS that the bike fell here. Okay.
Okay.
So you came out with such kind of thing at a cost price which the family will be able to buy. So for a 49,000 bike, which people will do a financing in India, how can you have a price point which people will be able to buy at? And the use case will compel them to buy it.
Okay.
And that's what we are trying to do with the Make in India, because the largest component of the IoT solution is not network and not the IT solution. Because IT solution, we are the largest IT developers in the world at a cheap price. So, that's not a challenge. The challenge is the cost of that device. Okay. And that cost of device going down is what we have been trying to do, and now this is giving number of results.
Okay.
You also asked something on the connectivity. Definitely there's BharatNet kind of projects and all this the government of India is trying to do, is to going to lead, say 100,000 gram panchayats connected with the optical fiber. Will they help? Answer is yes, they will definitely help. If the government will be able to achieve the 250,000 gram panchayats by end of this year or end of mid next year, it is going to have a huge impact on the kind of connectivity that is being available. So this legal and regulatory framework that is required to ensure that the security norms, data protection acts and everything is fulfilled, and definitely the standards, where we have to lead to see that, we have common standards and that interoperability will be solved because of that.
That's exactly the point I was making. Ali, you wanted to say something?
Yes. We talked a lot about pricing here, but if you take pricing out of it, let's say the consumer doesn't have to pay for the actual widgets. Talk about what the government is doing in these smart city initiatives. We're doing water meter deployments at the residential home. The consumer is downloading a free app, and they can actually see their water consumption without paying for anything. It's all driven through the smart city initiatives. Okay. That's one way of approaching consumer IoT without having any financial impact and actually allowing them to maybe reduce their bill per month because they can monitor their water consumption. Another thing is consumer IoT as a service. where you can provide them the equipment and then they pay a monthly subscription for something that will actually benefit them and they pay as they go.
Sure.
So that, on top of that, you have to look at privacy. You have to look at where the data is being stored. In 2017, there was a murder that took place, and there was an Alexa that was inside the home that recorded the murder. The FBI went to the homeowner and actually asked Amazon to provide the data that was stored in the cloud of the
Who
murder.
murdered the person? Was that the question?
Right. So they were able to
That's
make an
amazing.
arrest because of this amazing IoT technology. Now, where that data is being stored, how is it accessible by the government when there's an incident that takes place in a home or in a neighborhood? Those are things that I don't think has really been considered an in-depth knowledge. And who's responsible for that data? Is it the network operator that must supply the data? Like basic LI systems that was implemented by telcos.
Yeah.
IoT is a different space. You have data analytic companies that are storing the data. You have application providers that are doing the analytics on the software that are storing the data. So those type of things needs to be looked at. But I would like to see consumer IoT go into as a service model and even potentially free for the end user.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tarani?
I would have to agree with that. So I think Map My India is both B2C, B2B. We also do a lot of smart city projects as well. So we've also seen, we have a personal safety product as well, car safety product as well. But personal safety, I mean, I think it's just so hard to put a price on that. So it's tough to pay money, I think, when you think about it rationally. But it's been much easier, I think, to just approach schools and say that, hey, you should give your students these safety products. So making the buyer someone else, not like in his case the government, or in my case schools, is probably a better way right now to approach this market.
Anand?
I think it's all about awareness. What I'm only trying to make is a very simple point. We heard a lot about what applications can do. There is some sort of a barrier to say that these are all very expensive. I'm not saying they're not, but there is a lot of awareness that is required. What are the benefits of using an application? Do I need to purchase something, or do I have my smartphone and just download an app and I'll be able to use that? Today, the amount of apps that are floating into the system are enormous. You don't even know what are the benefits of some of these apps. I believe some of these concerns on security, which are very important, convenience, I think a lot of this can be actually resolved by having some database to say, look, these are good apps for you to just download on the phone, don't have to pay initially, take advantage of it, make use of it, and if you like it, then go down to the next level of the product.
So this is the thing, as we close this conversation, I think one of the big concerns I have always had is a lack of uniform security standards when it comes to this universe. Also, I don't quite understand, I mean, really, there's so much range, right? On one hand, we're talking about devices that are basically sensor-based. On the other hand, we're talking about ones that enable augmented behavior. Then there are, of course, the others that are all about, augmented intelligence. Where is there going to be a platform, or is there a platform that exists where you can actually have some kind of a credibility stamp, as well as a means of dispersing that knowledge that's needed? Because people are still not completely educated about what this entire beast is all about. So who do you think some key stakeholders could be when it comes to that? And are there any bodies on the ground? And I'm coming back to you on that, on this one.
See, in terms of stakeholders, I think there will be technology companies.
Yeah.
I think they should focus, besides technology, in giving awareness to consumers. You walk into a store and you want to, as Tarani mentioned, you want to know where your product is, which shelf, which row. I think if you get a app into your phone, or even if you don't have downloaded the app, if you walk into the store and you have a small iPad which is lying over there, you just use it and you know exactly where to go. I think that awareness factor needs to be built in a little bit more by technology companies, according to me.
Open standards technologies fit better with standardizations of certain requirements that need to be implemented from security and so forth. If you look at the alliances that are out there, the M2M, the LoRa Alliance, and others out there, they actually sit with multiple companies. The alliance is 500, Lore Alliance, it's over 500 companies coming together and sitting in committee decisions on a quarterly basis, defining these standards, and they do have certification programs where they certify these devices before they get distributed. So an open standard concept, I think that's already being done. The proprietary technologies aren't as much. And then the government policies and standards and procedures that are being implemented to keep everyone honest within a regional perspective is where that keeps everybody together.
That's interesting.
Just, one thought, Fatima.
Yeah.
Around 10 years back, I used to, go to Australia and all the Western countries, and we were trying to implement the cloud implementations, okay? And none of the banks were ready to put any of their data on cloud, okay? And then later on, the largest bank of Australia put everything of their on cloud. Today morning, the IT Principal Secretary from Maharashtra said they are closing their data centers and they are putting all their government work on cloud. Okay? So after 10 years, what we are seeing is the banks are putting everything of their on cloud, the government is putting everything of their on cloud. IoT has just started. There will be noise, there will be thoughts, there will be learnings. And the fear of the unknown, no doubt. So, while we are going through this transformation and transition mode, there are things that will happen. And that doesn't mean that we should not be worried about it and we should not be working towards it. Sure. But it's a time.
I'm going to close the session on that note. Thank you.